Take another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And faces from
Opa. Hello, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the latest episode of Talkin Guff podcast with me, your host, Ruben Django Pouch. Ruben Django Pouch is actually my name. Django is my middle name, DJANGO. I'm not just trying to be a total cool dude, but I am trying to slip it in there. But someone recently, and I won't name names, sent me a message that was like, and they called me a fucking tire. That was their insult for me. It's like, why are you saying Django, you fucking tire? That's what they called me. They called me a tire. I had never been called a tire as an insult before, but it was meant as an insult. I won't name names, but it was definitely meant as an insult. So, bienvenue, willkommen. Another guy I know, friend of mine, Chef Dan the Chef, Dan Blake, said on the last podcast, or the one before the last one, would you not do a happy podcast? And I get where he's come from 100%. So today we're going to be happy. We're going to keep it happy. We're going to, even if the news is depressing, we're going to smile when we say it. And so, big shout out to Dan Blake. If I'm being honest with you, I let him down recently. I let Dan down recently. He was looking for a reference off me, if you can imagine that I'm the type of person who gives references for work. But in certain areas, parameters, I do. And I said I'd do it for him, and I didn't do it for him. So I let him down. So big apology to you, Dan. In my defense, it would sort of happen really quickly, and then I didn't do it straight away, and I thought it was too late. But either way, I should have got it sorted a bit more. But I've been working my bollocks off as well, doing 60 hours a week, and so it just fell through the cracks. And I apologise, Dan, and I apologise to all of you, lovely listeners and viewers, for not giving Dan his reference. But like I said, it's a happy podcast. I'm not going to let the insult of being called a tire wash over me. I'm going to keep it happy. I'm going to keep it positive. And I'm not going to let my whatever. I'm not going to let the fact that I let Dan down stop us. So one thing I wanted to know was, first of all, I'm having a rat problem. Underneath the shed, there is a fucking colony of dirty rats. And I seen a couple of them. I seen one was a biggie, and I saw one was a little juvenile rat fink in his teens probably. And he looked real clean and nice and all, but he's a damn dirty rat, and he has to go, I'm afraid. So I put down a load of poison yesterday. I'm not joking you, right? I had 4. I don't know if you ever seen the rat poison. It's like a little donut, and you hammer it into something. And I hammered 2 onto a piece of wood. I went investigating, and I found a couple of little rat holes. So what I did was I hammered 2 on a piece of wood, and I put them outside one of the rat holes. And then I was like, fuck it, and I just threw one in that rat hole. And then this other one, you couldn't really leave something outside it, so I just threw a poisonous rat donut down that one. And I came back like a half an hour later, and even the bits I'd nailed to the wood were gone. Like, that's how much of a problem we have. Within half an hour, these motherfuckers had taken it all. Now, I suppose it's like crack cocaine for rats, so it's hard for them to not do it, but Jesus Christ, I didn't think it was going to be that quick. So that means now, at this very moment in time, there's a colony of rats writhing in pain and agony as their blood becomes coagulated in their systems. It's fucking awful, isn't it? But then the other side of that is I'm not having rats running around the place. I'm already a bit nervous that one's just going to pop out. I went to Africa one time, and the fucking size of the rats there, man, you never seen anything like it. And they weren't like, they looked like fucking ferrets with wiry hair. They were huge and long and mean looking. The fucking bang of rabies off them. But these rats that I have are sort of look like country rats. They don't look that bad, but they gotta go. So that's what's happening right now below my feet, believe it or not. So we've had a couple of guests. We've had Mr. Ronan O'Snuddig and Mr. Paul Ringo Ring. And I've enjoyed having the guests. I've found it a bit different, a bit more difficult to traverse or mediate, if you will. But I do enjoy it. And I think the one with Raw was really, really interesting in a more casual sort of just put it on, listen to his stories and his truth about his music and all the other artistic endeavours in which he takes part in. So that was a more sort of easy listening one, maybe. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm not trying to put it down. And then with Paul Ring, it was more, well, what an interesting guy, first and foremost. What an articulate and interesting gentleman, very intelligent. And he just made some really great points about the sort of social situations, poverty, drug abuse, etc., in our country, the ineptitude of our government, our leaders, etc. So that was really interesting. I really liked that one, but it's a bit more heavy listening and it's way longer. It's nearly 2 hours long because Paul loves a good waffle. So I wanted to know, what do you think of the guests? That sort of different dynamic, that different format. And would you comment in the comment section below how you're finding the guests and what sort of guests you would like to see? And, you know, because I think it is important, referencing Dan's sort of be happy or do a happy podcast comment. He's right, you know, it'd be good to keep some more flowy and light-hearted, if you will. And so I'd like to know some feedback, if possible. That'd be great. What are we looking at here? Comment. Yeah, because another thing is I would love if people would like and subscribe. If you enjoy the podcast, if you watch it on a regular basis and you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, the notifications bell, and give the videos you like a thumbs up. That would be much appreciated. It makes me feel like I'm going somewhere or achieving something. And also it's good for the podcast, I think, just to know what people's feedback and ideas are. Yeah, so please comment, like the videos, subscribe to the channel, hit the little notification bell, all right? Gav, my good friend Gav McCabe, who I played music with for years in the Cujo family, he's a fan of the podcast. He watches it on a regular basis, which is great. I'm really happy with that. And he comments, and that's how I know, I think, that he watches it on a regular basis. But he made a great comment here that I wanted to talk about. But funnily enough, another thing is, like, do you ever notice in YouTube, sometimes, like, I see the comments that I get through my notifications bell, but then when I go onto the videos, not all of the comments are necessarily there. You know what I mean? They're, like, it says 4 comments, but I can only see 2. What's that about? Is it because the person has said is a bit whatever, or like against community guidelines? I don't know. But Gavin McCabe commented. And so this is his comment. Regarding the Zionist idea of being chosen reminds me of a book I read recently called The Famine Plot by Tim Pat Coogan. Members of the British The Famine Plot by Tim Pat Coogan. Members of the British Parliament expressed ideas of divine providence when viewing the devastating effects of the potato blight in Ireland, justifying their inaction to alleviate the suffering. Colonialists express similar ideas when depopulating the indigenous people of America. It's an age-old rationalization. Of willful subjugation and genocide. Really interesting comment, Gav, and really well articulated as well, we might say. And 100% right, of course. That was my point. It's like this idea of I'm divine or I'm a chosen one is a precursor to treating another person like shit. Because it's no. I'm not a human rights violator. It's okay. I'm chosen. You know, I'm not costing the state, like I said this before about the British monarchy. It's like they're costing the state a huge amount of money while there's a lot of poverty, proximity, suffering going on in that country. And it's like, no, that's okay. They're divine. They're close to God. So, again, Gav, you're 100% right. It's a validation or a justification, a rationalization of treating people like shit. And it has to go. And that's my whole point. As soon as someone starts talking about being the chosen one, it's like, oh, okay, fuck off, please. You have to go. You're barred from the party, you pig. And so, Thanks, Gav, for the comment. Really good comment. On the money. You're bang on with that one. Oh, okay. Now I know we're going to keep it happy, but I'm going to touch on some of the depressing things we talked about a couple of podcasts ago because it's important. As much as it's important to sort of stay positive and be happy, I think we also need to know, everything that's going, or, be fairly aware of certain issues that might be going on around us. Like, we don't want to stick our heads in the sand. We don't want to be happy fools. We don't want to be happy and positive to our own detriment. Let's not feign happiness if we can see that these things going on over here are really going to make us unhappy in a sort of long-term and forever way. Okay, boom. So, we talked about the housing crisis a couple of episodes ago, and we talked about the housing crisis in and of itself, how the sale of available houses to international corporate entities is compounding the situation, and how surely our government should step in, should intervene, and not allow these these financial interests to make a bad situation worse for the citizens of our island, And I saw a couple of interesting things, and I'll try and pop them up on the screen as I'm talking about them, articles they were. But one article that I saw was either in the last 5 or 10 years, but in a certain period of time, house prices have increased by 68%, while wages have increased on average by 9%. I mean, we weren't in a great place 5 or 10 years ago with housing, and now it's just got sort of 60, 70% worse. And our cost of living is going through the roof, but our wages don't reflect that. But other people's wages do. Leo Varadkar's wages reflect that. And so I just think that that's really, obviously, there's something wrong there, isn't it? When you see a fact in a figure like that, 68% increase in the price of houses, whilst in that same period of time, we've had a 10% increase in wages. How the fuck does that add up? We talked about affordable housing being 400 grand in this county, and minimum wage is 10.10. It's the same sort of thing. You look at the obvious maths of the situation and go, that can't work. There's no longevity to this situation. It's not viable. But yet, no one intervenes. Darragh O'Brien sits on Leo's face and panders to these, corporate entities. It's not good enough, actually, as it happens, Darragh. So, another couple of things is there's a housing estate or another batch of houses being made available in a housing estate in Kildare or somewhere on the periphery of County Dublin, which is now an acceptable commute, like an hour and 20 minutes. That's all right. You can deal with that drive for an hour and 20 minutes just to get to work. So, but on one of these periphery areas around Dublin, there's 44 houses now available in a new development. 5,000 people applied for a viewing of those 44 houses. 5,000 people. And what Savills auction house had to do, of course, was now you can't even go and view that house unless you have a mortgage ready to rock, like signed off, ready to rock, or you have proof of available funds. Like, who wouldn't have that? Who doesn't have 600 grand in the bank just to show you to go and view a house? Of course. That makes sense. And again, it's just a symptom or a little microcosm for how fucked the situation. We got 44 houses, 5,000 people apply, and like they're not cheap houses, and so you would assume like if they were only 200 grand for the house, tens of thousands of people would apply for these houses. And then so many people have applied, like 100 times more people have applied than there are houses available, over 100 times, and we are going to, so now you can't even look at it unless you got 600 G's in the bank. That's fucked up, man. That's fucked up. That can only work for like a very small percentage of people. Again, why won't the government intervene? Why is this the case? Why is there nowhere for people to go? Why are they going to fall between the cracks? It's mental. And it's really upsetting, probably. Like, it's actually just starting at 37 years of age, starting to sort of dawn on me that I'm never going to own a home. Like, I'm going to put myself on the housing list, I reckon, because it's not realistic. Where the fuck am I going to get it? Unless I win the lotto. But, again, now this one I thought was totally insane. And if you look at this, you're like going, right, yeah, something's really wrong. On a load of levels, something's really wrong here. And it's really wrong for people who earn good money, but it's just as equally wrong or even more so for people who are on the lower rungs of the financial ladder. Like if you earn 60 G's a year, it's tough. If you earn less than that, which most people do, myself included, you're fucked. Like, you're fucked. And here's a little microcosm for that, or case in point, or point in case. I can't remember which one it is. Ruan Grant threw me recently. But there's a house in Randall or Rathmines, and again, I'll pop it up here. And it is just a normal 3-bedroom house, like the type you'd see over in Ardmore Park there in Bray or whatever. Just a normal 3-bedroom house. You know, no great shakes. Probably got fucking hollow, crappy doors inside and crap wallpaper. And, you know, it's old. It's from the 50s or something. 3-bedroom, 650 fucking thousand euro, right? So as if that's not bad enough. Like, how many people are just out as soon as they see that price tag? It's like, you know, you see a nice jacket and you pick it up. It's like, oh, put that back on the rail. So now this house is 650,000 euro. There are people putting in offers of 900,000 euro for that house. That's it's over 250,000, because I think it's something like 630. So it's actually 200 and something thousand euro more than the asking price has been offered on this house. Number one, who the fuck has 600 grand to buy a house? Like, who the fuck? That's 120 grand deposit whilst continuously paying rent or whatever your accommodation situation is. So that's a big ask anyway for a house that's not worth it. Like, we understand perceived value for money. We won't buy something that has no perceived value for money. But they have you over a barrel with a house or a home because you have to have it. Like, you need it. And so perceived value for money goes out the door. Okay, and we spoke before about how the banks and these independent financial institute or financial interests are keeping the rental house price inflated, and then sort of by the proxy or by default, because there's supply and demand issues, we're keeping the house prices inflated for sort of first time buyers and people who really need a home. I'm just going to say that word again, home. So all the people who couldn't afford 650 grand to begin with, they're gone. You know, it's not worth the money, but they're out of the equation now. They can't even have the conversation. But who the fuck has 900 grand to put in on an offer of a house, 3-bedroom, normal 3-bedroom, semi-detached house in some estate in Rathmines? It's fucking mental. Who has that money? Like, my mind would boggle. And then, like, do the people who are putting in those bids, are they people looking for a home? Or are they other private investment entities, interests looking to now buy even, like, oh, we'll not only buy them all off plan, we'll even fucking put in bids for, insane amounts of money just to have them, because it's good for business. We keep the whole thing inflated, everyone's having a fucking good time. It's great. It's not great. It's really shit for people who can't afford homes. And so they're just another few instances or symptoms of the situation that I thought make it really obvious that it's fucked. And we all know it's fucked, but I mean, it's really spinning out of control now at this stage. What the government has allowed to take place, the fire sale of 1 billion euros worth of new homes, new builds off plan, that has just sent what was a bad situation over the tipping point. 100%. It's disgraceful. And then as if, and here then we're just going to touch, and again, we're saying happy, everyone's happy, we're all happy. But here's a mad thing, is that there's a situation over in the west of Ireland with mica blocks. So I don't know, I'm not a fucking block expert, but there's too much mica in these blocks that they build houses with in Donegal, and the blocks have deteriorated into nothing. They're shit, they're fucked, right? And there are people living in temporary accommodation while they pay for their, like, condemned derelict houses. They're still locked into 30-year mortgages. Some fiend, the whole gable end of his house is coming away. He can put his hands through the blockwork. Like, the coursing of the blockwork has just split in the corner, and he can fucking put his hand into his living room. He's still paying a mortgage on this house. He's locked into it for 30 years. He's living in temporary accommodation. There's a woman an old woman is afraid her fucking house is going to fall in on top of her. And that is obviously gross sort of negligence on the part of who? Who is liable or responsible for that? Is it the builder? I don't know if you remember. I don't even remember when it was, but it was sometime in the last 10 years, say. I don't think it was 10 years ago, but I'm not 100% sure, where a fire marshal condemned, effectively, a load of new builds in Dublin somewhere, in and around the city centre, I think, and I'll try and find it and reference it in the BOP. But a fire officer had condemned a load of brand new builds that people had gotten 30-year mortgages on. They're forever homes, just like down in Donegal with these micro blocks. And the fire marshal comes along and he condemned them because he said, they're not up to fire safety standards. There was some serious issues with the build. And there was no recourse for the people. They were still paying these mortgages whilst living in temporary accommodation, living back in their parents' houses and stuff like that. So, like, you could go and spend 900 grand on that house in Ranelagh, and there could be something wrong with it. And you'd be locked into that forever. And no one, they'd just be like, oh, whatever the fuck, tough shit. And, like, when I worked on building sites, and I did, up until 2008, from sort of 2004 maybe to 2008, I worked on building sites, building houses, and there was a home bond association. And the guy was meant to come from the Home Bond Association, which I'm assuming is like some sort of independent entity which can cross all the T's and dot all the I's and make sure that we don't end up situations like we do with the Micah Blocks or the fire marshal thing. You know, he fucking green lights it, make sure the builder isn't being a lunatic. Obviously, the Home Bond Association was nowhere to be seen. Like, surely there should be some government, there should be some recourse to people who act like cowboys and get paid through the nose to do it. Like, and so if developers are acting like cowboys and cutting corners and using shit materials, they should be liable for that situation. But I don't know what happened with the fire marshal thing, but they're not with these micro blocks. That's a fact, and I don't know why. And maybe if you knew why, you would comment and let me know. But that is going to cost the state, which means you and me, €1 billion. That micro block fuck up is going to cost €1 billion. Okay? Now, there's already issues because, like, if you want to apply, you can get a 250 grand from the government that me and you pay for. I'm not having to go with the people who are having to take advantage of this scheme because they're fucked. Their forever homes are fucked. But if you can get between 70 and 300,000 euro from the government through this scheme to either fix your house or totally demolish it and build a new one, which is fucking insane. It's insane, and that's what it's going to cost. They reckon the Dáil was told that it would be €1 billion bill for that, and there's no one held to rights for that. There's no one liable for that. And all of these, like the situation with No Home Bond Association, which I'm assuming led to the issues with the micro blocks, which led to the issues with fire marshal. I'm sure there's way more of these like new builds that have been made there, like because of corners that were cut by shoddy developers, right? That all came out. That whole toxic sort of situation came out of Fianna Fáil's tenure from sort of 2000 and whatever to 2011. We got rid of them after the financial crisis with the banks, but we just sort of got their best mates or their, the mirrored version of them to come along and fuck it up even more, fuck up the housing situation even more, fuck up the health service even more. But that was born out of Fianna Fáil's ineptitude. It was born out, like, Micheál Martin was on the front bench for Bertie Ahern with that administration. So, the person who was now Taoiseach was there at the sort of embryonic stage of all these fucking total disasters that we're going through now. And I thought that was a bit of food for thought. Why don't we get him the fuck out? It was his ineptitude and greed that led to situations like this where people who have, toiled blood, sweat and tears for their forever homes are now living in fucking hotels while they put a hand through the gable end of their gaff. So, that's his history, that's their history, that's what they like to do. Is that what we want going forward for the future? I don't. Now, not a silver lining to this situation, but Blind Boy spoke about investment funds buying up €1 billion worth of homes off plan in this country. There is a petition to, and this is the happy part of what we're talking about, there is a petition to sort of petition the government to say that we no longer will accept the sale of our homes to foreign investment interests. And that's something, I'll find the link and I'll put it in the description here below. And then we should all have a go on that petition. And just so we know, I mean, petitions are probably totally fucking useless. Let's be real. But I mean, anything, and maybe I'm wrong about that. I just think we probably need to employ a more extreme strategy, but this is where we start. And I would implore anyone who thinks that it's a bad situation or an unacceptable situation to put your hand up and say, this is unacceptable, surely. With a big smile on your face, all right? So, I saw a thing today, and I'm just going to say it real quickly because I didn't read too much about it, but John McAfee, and whoever doesn't know who John McAfee is, he's the creator of McAfee computer security software. And at one point, I think he managed to get his virus software onto every single computer PC on the planet. There is an insane documentary called, pretty sure it's called El Gringo, The Life and Times of John McAfee. And it's about John McAfee and his crazy life and what he got up to with his millions. And he's a fucking nutcase.
I'm John McAfee. I'm the guy that's accused of murdering police. His name is Guatemala. The FBI is going to be looking for me if you don't call him, sir. The FBI?
It's a really cool, really entertaining, interesting documentary, and it's worth a watch. Gringo, The Life and Times of John McAfee. But John McAfee has turned up dead in a Spanish prison cell. He had been arrested in Barcelona because he's facing tax criminal charges in the US. He was due to be extradited. Now he's fucking done a Jeffrey Epstein. He's turned up dead in his cell in Spain, but he probably killed himself. Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. John McAfee potentially did. But mad, huh? Like, if you look at that documentary and see the sort of stratospheric rise and fall from grace that he had, it's really interesting. And to think that that's where he ended up, that's where he breathed. How do you say that? Breathed? That's where he drew his last breath, was in a fucking dirty jail cell in Barcelona. Interesting stuff. Interesting documentary. Worth a watch. Check it out. So I saw this crazy video there. And, you know, it wasn't 100% obvious what was going on, but it definitely looked like you fucking assholes. And it was the guards in town. Someone was filming from inside a restaurant or a bar or something, and it was the guards basically taking litter or taking booze off people and like sort of emptying their bags and throwing it on the ground in this sort of mad way. And I thought something seemed really crazy about it. And I haven't been into Dublin city centre recently, but I heard it's sort of like littered with the evidence of, littered with rubbish and the evidence of sort of extreme homeless living. And I think that's something we're going to do a podcast on as well, as we go into town and maybe parlay with some homeless people and try and get an idea of what it's been like in the last year. But I did think that this, I don't know, I'll show you the video, and there just seemed to be something real shitty or malevolent about it. And like, are the guards littering Dublin city centre? But there just seemed to be, it's like you can sort of pick and choose. It's like sometimes drinking on the street, you know, in a sort of socially acceptable way is okay. And other times it's like, no, we're going to fuck all your shit on the ground. And someone was even saying, no, I'll just put it in the bin right there. And they're like, no, on the ground. And so did they just throw that shit on the ground and walk away? Are they agent provocateurs? Unagi, get your fucking tinfoil hats out. But yeah, I don't know. Has anyone been in Dublin recently? I'd like you to comment in the comment section what it's like. What's it like in the city centre? does it seem to have gotten way worse for the homeless people having to live on the streets there? Has the number of homeless people seemed to grow? You know, I would be interested to know. Ringo makes some interesting points about homelessness and stuff like that as well. Well, look, it was just something that I thought seemed a bit out of place, and I'd like a couple of comments about it. Did anyone else see this video of the guards littering the streets with empty beer cans and other rubbish from people's bags? Does anyone else, has anyone who commutes into Dublin every day in the last year or lives in the city centre has noticed that things have become sort of more extreme for the homeless people living on the streets of Dublin? We'd love to know. Please comment. What's that? Oh, yeah. Jeff Bezos is going to space on his rocket. He's going to space on his little rocket.
You see the Earth from space, it changes you. It changes your relationship with this planet, with humanity. It's one Earth. I want to go on this flight because it's a thing I've wanted to do all my life. It's an adventure. It's a big deal for me.
I mean, it's a bit of a cop-out because initially I was like, wow, he's going to space? He's going to be an astronaut? And like, what's the story? Is he going to the moon? Is he going to be gone for months? Could he potentially die? And it turns out he's going to space for 10 minutes. The whole thing's going to take 10 minutes. You go, woo! And right about here is space. And you go, I'm up in space, I'm in space, and I'm back down. 10 minutes. That's all it's going to take. Imagine that. 10 minutes. And he's bringing his bro with him because we've just always wanted to see space, man. It's been a childhood dream of ours. Yeah, I'd love to go, Jeff. Thanks for bringing me. And it would be, I'll just say this much. I would be fucking terrified. I'd be terrified to go to space. I don't even really like going on airplanes. Like, I probably would never go on one again if I had the option. And you want to go on a fucking rocket up to space? You know, and when you, like, how arrogant would you have to be or to not be afraid of that? Because it's not even, it's like, oh yeah, the lads I work with have after making a rocket, I'm going to get in it and go up to space. It's not like, you know, even though NASA's just a bunch of lads as well, SpaceX is just a bunch of lads as well. It's just like, yeah, but I know these fuckers and I've got to get in the rocket they made. Like, I work with, I'm not going to get in a rocket that a bunch of chefs have made for me down and work and go, oh, fair enough, lads. Or even a fucking go-kart and go down to Putnam Hill. I'm not doing that. So he's going in a rocket up into space. And is it too easy to say that wouldn't it be great if he died? A little bit. It would though, wouldn't it? Like, it'd be interesting. You know, what happened to Jeff Bezos? The richest man on the planet. He went full, like, what's your man's name from Flight of the Navigator? Or not Flight of the Navigator. That was a cool film, wasn't it? From your childhood, Flight of the Navigator. The Aviator. What's that guy, the germaphobe's name? Like, imagine he had died in one of his test flights. It would have been mad news all across the world. What if Jeff Bezos just, like, does a fucking Star Trek Voyager on it and just explodes into... it's not Star Trek Voyager. What's the name of the shuttle that exploded? The Atlantis or something, I don't know. They always give them those sort of names, don't they? Like Titanus and Atlantis and Apollo. And so, what if it just explodes? What if we're just like, yeah! Oh. Well, the world might be a slightly better off place. But instant fireball death, in my opinion, is too good for Jeff Bezos. What I hope happens, I hope he fucking skips into some parallel dimension and like there's a fucking Event Horizon scenario takes place. That would be good. That would be just desserts for Jeff Bezos. That he ends up on like a ship that's been to hell and back, being chased around by the ghosts of his nappy-clad workers who died in the fucking factory, in the warehouses or something. That would be a fucking wake-up call for old Jeff, wouldn't it? Being fucking by, you know, non-unionized workers. He'd know all about that one. Shh, I think I hear a rat. So, where are we at? Godspeed to Jeff Bezos. Good luck to him, huh? But I have a problem with YouTube. I have been going down these hardcore YouTube rabbit holes, and there's some of the trash that I could spend hours watching on YouTube is mental. Like that instant karma shit, street fights, UFC stuff for fucking hours. Just like, yeah, what's the next one? What's the related thing? What's up next? I'm mad into the recently wild animal encounters, like bear attacks and other sort of fucked up wild animal encounters. I don't know what. It's like some weird morbid fascination. It's just like, and it's just so toxic. I can see myself going, yeah, this is the third hour now you've been looking at self-defense videos from the States. There's a fucking guy has I don't know how I fucking bumped into it basically, but he has a self-defense program where he effectively shows videos of people literally killing each other, shooting each other to death, and what's it called? Active self-defense or something his channel's called. And he looks like a big fat idiot who you'd punch up and down Bray Beach, no problem. But but he's gone mad. He's like, and he says if he thinks that every sane, able-minded, you know, person on the planet should carry a gun all the time. And so basically he shows videos, and then one thing is that 60% of the videos he shows come from South America. Like fucked up, hardcore, impoverished, violent countries. And he's like, look at him get the drop on this guy. And he uses these horrible expressions, like he just tries to dehumanize it. Like, because it's people literally shooting each other to death on camera. CCTV, you know, right? And he uses terms like defender. So, you know, the defender shot and killed that person. He did a fucking good job at it too. This is the sort of stuff he says. Always have your tools on you. It's not a tool, mate. It doesn't make stuff. It's a gun. It's a tool of death. It kills. It ends lives. And so, like, even that, it just makes it so much more. The defender had his tool and defended himself. Not like the you know, the gun-wielding maniac shot another gun-wielding maniac to death. You know, that doesn't come into it at all. And it's a very strange program. And it's like, fuck you, man. Just because you grew up soft, pussy, get your head kicked in 10 times a day, now you want to go, just everyone should get a gun, and just like whenever there's an altercation or a fight, we'll just tell you, oh yeah, great, he died. That guy died. It's great. It's great. Really well executed defense with his tools. And I cannot stop watching this program or whatever it is, this YouTube channel. It's fucking morbidly fascinating. Morbidly fascinating. And it sort of shows you how fucked up they are in the States and how fucked up this guy's thought process is, and how he just takes any sort of video and applies it to self-defense. Yeah, what we learned today is, what's the important lessons? There's 8 of them on the website. Know your surroundings. Have your tools. Shoot the guy in the face. Kill him stone dead.
Hi everyone, this is John with today's active self-protection lesson out of Brazil. This one happened just this week, and it is a female Brazilian police officer who is the victim, or the intended victim, of an attempted carjacking. We're going to learn important lessons here about awareness, particularly in transitional spaces with your vehicle. We're going to talk about keeping your tools on you and about using force efficiently and effectively and in the moment. Early in the morning, and this female officer who's in the car is leaving for work. And what you're going to see here is she's going to try to pull out of the driveway, and you can see the 3 guys near the top of the screen that are trying to start to case her. Well, everything's kind of okay for the minute, but then the one's going to push a gun on her, and bang, there goes the first shot. They start running off, and we're going to see several shots come from her driver's side window as well. They have run off, and if you go, everything that I have, there's just a little bit in the raw that I've linked in the description, but what I've heard is one of the goblins did not make it, the other 2 scurried off.
It's fucking mental, and you want us to adopt that sort of attitude? You want every sane, able-minded person on the planet to carry a gun at all times? I'm pretty sure I want every sane, able-minded person on the planet to try and empathize with everyone else on the planet. How would that go down? Empathy, not like acute extrovert violence, empathy. I'm obviously a crackpot because I don't have a gun. I don't carry a gun around, so I'm not sane or able-minded, obviously, according to, I think his name's John. I can't remember. It's fucking weird. And he's like, I'm the owner here at something self-defense. Like, it's just a shitty YouTube channel, mate. You're not the owner of anything. You're a fucking gun nut spouting rhetoric. What am I, the owner and director of Talkin Guff podcast? It's in my shed. There's rats underneath me. You're not the owner, mate. You're a fucking fruitcake. But what else do I watch? Like hecklers. I watch a lot of stand-up comedy. I have, dipped my toe in the ocean of stand-up comedy before. I did maybe 4 10-minute sets over the period of about 6 months, and I fell out of it for multiple reasons, one of which being I just didn't feel like anything was funny for a while. But I'm starting to feel like that again. Like, there is stuff to point and laugh at, and it's not all, I don't have to take myself so seriously all the time. I can have a bit of a laugh, I feel. And so I'm going to maybe, when things open back up or whatever way it's going to work, start doing a bit of open mic stuff again. And that was spurred on by, because this is something I don't mind spending time watching on YouTube, is comedians, stand-up comedians. I love how they deal then with hecklers is great, because it sort of takes people outside, takes even the comedian outside their comfort. Oh, excuse me. Takes even the comedian outside their comfort zone and sort of makes them think fast, think on their feet. It's not part of their set. It's a thing they have to deal with, and it's great to see it in real time, see how quick these situations are dealt with. But another thing that I stumbled upon, and it's mad because it's like that defense channel I was talking about. But one thing I stumbled upon was clips on YouTube. Clips taken from a program called 60 Days In. Has anyone heard of this program, 60 Days In? Oh my God. It's like if the Big Brother house was a prison or a jail in America. That's what you got. That's 60 Days In. The premise, before I get into it, right? The program is produced by a production company called A&E, which even for me is like accident and emergency. That's the premise. That's what all their shows are about. They have like multiple programs, a modern day cops sort of one they have. Has anyone seen the YouTube video that's floating around now from Cops, which even in and of itself, like, listen to what Bill Hicks has to say about the program Cops, and it's perfect. And he was a man that was 30 years ahead of the curve. If he was alive today to see what's going on, he'd be having a fucking field day, and we'd be getting educated by Mr. Bill Hicks. But they have, like, oh yeah, so what I was saying, have you seen there's a clip from Cops where this woman, and that's the thing about it, she just looks like a normal middle American woman. She's like, she's trying to buy crack off this, so the cop's going, what's going on here? And she's like, I gave $20 for some crack, and that woman won't give me my crack. I think, if she didn't have it, she shouldn't take my $20. She doesn't give a fuck. She's just saying it to the cop. Yeah, I was trying to buy $20 worth of rock. And she's like, even when she says that, like, if she didn't have it, she shouldn't sell it to me. She sold her baking soda or something. And then he goes over to the person who apparently sold her or ripped her off with the rock. And he's like, what's going on? It's an African-American woman. She's like, baby girl, she came in here, she told me I sell her something. I don't sell nothing. I'm not selling nothing. She started saying she wanted money back. I said, hold on a minute, girl. I didn't sell you anything. Not in front of my child. You're not going to talk to me in front of my child like that. I'm not a drug dealer. I'm a prostitute. And it's just like, it takes you, like, it's like a fucking roller coaster of a video. I'll try and get it and I'll pop it right here.
$20. I gave her a $20 and she didn't give me nothing.
Why does she owe you $20?
A $20 bill. I gave her a $20 bill.
For what?
For anything. I don't care. Whatever it's for, but she can give me my money back if she ain't gonna do nothing with it.
Okay, were you planning to buy some drugs
yes,
or something?
Was.
What kind of drugs were you wanting to buy?
Rock.
Rock?
Yes, I was.
You gave her $20 to buy?
I gave her $20. She gave me some plaster.
And now you want your $20 back
yes, I do.
Because she didn't supply you with crack cocaine.
Well, if she shouldn't give me nothing, no plaster or nothing, she should have said no.
What's going on?
She come around here a while ago. There used to be some people live right over there that used to sell.
Yeah.
We were sitting out here on the porch in some chairs. So she said, y'all have anything to buy? I said, no, baby, we don't have nothing to sell. So she left one around the corner. Then she come back 10 minutes later, holler, give me my money back up. No, you ain't bought nothing from here. Don't disrespect my child. This is my child. I don't sell crack. I'm a prostitute.
But this company, Accident and Emergency, have multiple programs, and they're all set around accident and emergency services, I suppose. Prisons, there's a cops thing. There's a few prison ones, actually. There's a sort of cops one. There's a sort of paramedic thing. And they're all a bit horrible, really. All the programs, they all look a bit horrible and Hunger Games-esque. But this program, 60 days in, is crazy. Here's the premise. You take normal people, and they're not normal, they're fucking fruitcakes, but like there's working moms, couple of cops I seen, ex-cops, ex-gang members, corrections officers, this sort of stuff. Civilians, effectively, right? So they take these civilians and they put them into jail, county jail, for 60 days. And so the difference, I'm pretty sure, the jail in America is like a remand centre. It's somewhere you get put on remand till you get court and get sentenced, and then you go to prison, right? And for me, the jail and prison system in America looks like one of the roughest on planet Earth. Like, you are going to get the shit kicked out of you for definite. You're going to get bummed up the bum for definite. And like, I'm not saying anything against men bumming each other, but like, you know, you're going to get raped up the ass, in fact, right? And no one wants that. No one, I don't think. So yeah, I would maintain that the penal system in America, their jails and all, are fucking, forget about it. There's a guy from Ireland, Bray, in jail in America. Is he from Bray? The guy who did the Silk Road thing and all. Like, that is no fucking joke, man. And you watch this 60 Days In program, like the anxiety alone, how these motherfuckers aren't just dropping from heart attacks is beyond me. So they take these civilians and they stick them in this 60 Days In situation, right? And I don't really know. Like, because they're saying that, oh yeah, the whole premise is that you get information, you know, we try to stop internal crime within the prison service, negligent officers, you know, so it's presented as a way to improve the system, but it's not. It's not. It's just a way for these fucking sociopaths to make money off of this prison system. And here's the thing, is that the prison system in the States is only about money. Dave DeGraw, who's a sort of alternative economist, started the 1% movement. Is it Dave DeGraw? Or is that a singer? No, it is. It's Dave DeGraw, and I'm pretty sure Dave DeGraw is a singer as well. But I'll find who it is and I'll put it up. But he basically started the Occupy movement and the 1% movement, and he's an alternative economist. He talks some really interesting stuff about like the size of like this and that, basically. He's a really interesting guy, and he would call the prison system in America a tyrannical conveyor belt of incarceration. And if we've spoke before about two documentaries, one called The House I Live In and one called Crack, which sort of explain how the prison system and the penal system has been created in a way to have the most sort of detrimental effect on young black poor people in the States, basically, you know. Really interesting documentaries, just watch them yourself. But the point I'm making is that the prison system is already this sort of psychotic and sociopathic money machine created by the government in order to make billions, literally, for private prisons. So it's totally fucked up system they have, and they, you know, they need to keep filling these prisons with people or it's no business. And so that's an even sort of crazier model of capitalism than we've seen before or spoke before. It's like, no, we're making money off the fact that these people are going to jail with inflated sentences for bullshit. Their crime is they're poor. And so as if that's not enough, as if the billions of dollars being generated by that system for private financial entities wasn't enough, this production company wants to make even more money off it. And it's just even grosser, like wheel of misery, isn't it? Like, because anyone who goes to jail for an extended period of time in the States, their life is ruined. Their loved ones are ruined. And there's plenty of non-violent offenders doing fucking insane. Like, you might go, but these people belong in prison. They're murderers and rapists and all. You can keep the murderers and the rapists and leave them in prison. That's fine. But there are literally millions of people in the States in prison for non-violent crimes. There's definitely a lot of people in this country in prison for non-violent stuff, you know, petty drugs, etc., etc. But in the States, they found a way to even, like, to perpetuate that misery even further whilst making more money for themselves. It's fucking insane. And this program, 60 Days In, really, like, the really highlights how awful it would be. Just like you get in there and you're like, hey, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to get the fucking shit kicked out of me right now? Am I going to get shanked? Am I going to get intimidated, extorted? You know, am I going to fuck up one of the rules, these unwritten rules, and get fucking bashed by lads with soap bars in socks? You know, fucking heavy stuff. And just the anticipation the whole time. You know, like the worst part of being in a fight is when you're waiting to get punched in the face. That's what life would be like for these lads. And it's really morbid program, insanely morbid program. But one of the most interesting parts of that program that I found is, like, there's a couple of lads, there's a handful of lads throughout the 6 series or however many series they've made of it, who go full fucking Donnie Brasco. Like, there's a guy called Tony, who's a corrections officer, and he goes full Donnie Brasco. He's boxing the head off lads, he's extorting pussies, he's, you know, he's going for it. He's fully immersing himself in the culture. He's going to be the pod boss, they call it. It's all different pods of lunatics. And there's a pod boss, you know, he's the hardest lad. He boxed the head off most lads. This guy, Tony, becomes a pod boss in his pod. He's actually a corrections officer. He goes full Donnie Brasco. He's extorting lads. He's trading. He's boxing a few lads around. He goes up, a guy doesn't give him his grits or something like this, and he goes up and takes all his clothes off him. And, like, and I get it. Like, it's like, he has to be like that to become immersed and to survive in the situation. But he's getting paid money for every show. I think even if you last the full length of a series, you earn about $60,000. So obviously that's his incentive. That's what's incentivizing him to stay in the program for as long as possible. But the way he then adapts to doing that, he turns into a fucking pod boss lunatic, boxing the head off lads, buying shanks and all. So, and then there's another guy called Abner, who's like a Chicano, Latino dude, and he's gone, ex-gang member, I think this guy was, but he's like, he goes full Donnie Brasco as well. He's an enforcer. He's going around being a fucking Chicano enforcer in this pod he's in, and he's like, oh man, it's mental. It is mental. Honestly, I couldn't stop watching it. I spent hours watching clips of why you shouldn't steal from the pod boss and, you know, mad, morbid crap. And I just, what is that? Am I alone? Okay, comment time. Has anyone watched 60 Days In? If so, were you morbidly fascinated by it? And then, thirdly, no, that's it, maybe. I just want to know I'm not a total nutcase on my own. So, 60 Days In. It's crazy. Check it out. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. So, yeah, 60 Days In. Mental program. But it made me think of a story that I have myself. A little prison story. My own prison story that I was going to share with you people as we wrap up the podcast for today. So years ago, I was really enthusiastic about smoking weed. I was really enthusiastic about it years ago. And so I had loads of it. I decided I'd get myself a load of weed and keep it in my house. And I mean, you know, there was a good bit of it. Like I said, I was really enthusiastic about it. But the guards came along and they were like, no, they weren't very enthusiastic about me having such amounts of weed. And so they said, no, we're going to place you under arrest, actually, Ruben. And we're going to drag you through a 2-year rigmarole. And I suppose that's where my sort of dislike or distrust of the guards came from, because I tried to deal with... Okay, I'll tell you, right? I was stopped in my car. I had X amount of weed on me. And they said, that looks like a little bit more than we would expect a lad to have just in his car. So I was like, all right, fair enough. So I was placed under arrest. Arrested initially for drug driving, because I was driving my car and I wasn't smoking at the time, but they said that's how they were going to do it. So that's what they did. They obviously found the bit of weed that I had in the car, decided that that was an excessive amount for me to have in my car, brought me down to Bray Guard Station, at which point they got a warrant to go back and check the house that I was living in, which they did. So I get brought into this room, and I know they have found this bit because it was in the car and I was there when they found it, right? And I get brought into this room, and they have all manner of things that they've taken from the house in which I live, and like it was total stoner mongo stuff. They were pulling out like pellet guns and big stupid knives, like, and they'd be like, "Well, this is a firearm." I was like, "It's a pellet gun. We shoot like tin cans with it when we've had a few." And you know, these big, what's the story of these big knives, swords and all big, but they were just like stupid things that stoners in their 20 have lying around their rooms. So they pulled out all this stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, that's that thing. Oh yeah, that's me knife that I got. So, you know, it's not for doing it, and that's that. And eventually they took out a sack of Joia, all right, a big sack of weed, and said, who owns this? And I was just like, look, fair enough. You call me red-handed. I've got this in the car, this in the house. It is what it is. I'll take responsibility. I won't be a belligerent fucking lunatic about it. And, you know, let's be adults here. And, oh, here's a mad thing, right? And I'll never forget this, right at the very end of the interview, because they're like, right, fair enough, we've gone through everything, we've recorded everything, it is what it is. At the end of the interview, they get this guy comes in, because the guy who stopped me and conducted the investigation, as it were, was just like a traffic dude, and I can't remember his name. I think it was Seamus Ryan, big tall, like centurion looking fucking country dude, right? And you know, but the dynamic was fine, the rapport was fine. I was being respectful and, you know, just getting through it. It's like, it's done now. I just want to get through this, go home and process the whole situation, right? But at the end, and he's conducted the interview, and he's not a detective, you know, he probably is now, the fucker. He probably got a promotion off the back of this shit. But he brings in a detective, and this guy, the guy he brought in looked like a traveller. He had fake tan on, I looked like, and he had the little moustache on him, and he looked like a member of the travelling community. Tom was his name. I'll never forget that. He's got crap. Like, he looks like Tubbs and Crockett if they were travellers, you know? He comes in with his crap suit on his polo neck top, but he's got a fucking gun here, and he sort of sits up on the side of the desk, and I'm there, and he's sitting there, so he knows. He's actually doing a passive-aggressive sort of intimidatory thing here, and he proceeds to tell me how much trouble I'm in, how I'm fucked, and the only person who can help me is him and me mate, Shay Ryan, or whatever his name was. And, you know, this is going to be trouble, but maybe if I was a little bit like this, it'd be less trouble. And I just turned around, and he had a big spiel about it. It went on for 5 minutes or so, and because we can tell you're not like the rest of them. And it went on for a while, and I said, right, look, Mr. if you will, thanks, but no thanks, because you can't really help me with anything. This is what it is, and if I say anything to you, I'll be dead. And so I'd rather just take this on the chin and move forward like an adult. And he was like, right, fair enough. And the thing he said right before he left the room was like, well, you know, no one likes a rat anyway, don't you? And I was like, Jesus Christ, like, did he just give me props for not ratting? A little bit. He was just like, fair play to you, lad. No one likes a rat. And so that was that. But when it came, there was rigmarole and all the rest of it. But then it came, like there was, you go in and they say, we're preparing the bucket of evidence and blah, blah, blah. But the day was set. This was the day. It was all going to come to a head. All the mitigation had been done. I went and did piss tests every week in Killinarden of my own volition and at my own expense as mitigation. And funnily enough, that's where I met Paul. That's where I met Ringo, who was with us last week. When I was looking into doing some mitigation for my circumstances, you know, I engaged in cognitive behavioral therapy, I engaged in the urine analysis, all this stuff, right? So that I could present that to the courts as mitigation as to how I'm trying to turn things around. I had started my own business in the interim, everything. We get to the day, and I have all my mitigation. I have, you know, well present myself. I've got a lawyer, all this stuff. And it's on a Monday. And the judge is a red-faced gentleman, probably addicted to alcohol, second most dangerous drug on planet Earth. But he is, because here's the thing, the guards even went out of their way to try and give me 2 convictions, one for the car and one for the house. Like, it's all the same incident, but they broke it up into 2 convictions. The judge decided, I was the last person to be seen, I'm pretty sure, and the judge said at the last minute, he said, right, I'm going to put you on remand till Thursday. This is on a Monday. So you be going to Clover Hill prison till Thursday. And I was like, oh, right, okay, that's eek. But because here's the thing, is that this had come up as something that could potentially happen. And the guards, this had come, shut the fuck up, for God's sake. Oh yeah, so it had been said to me by the lawyer or my solicitor that if you get put on remand for a day or 2, that's usually a good thing. If he was going to sentence you to give you a custodial sentence, he would, you know, enforce that custodial sentence on the day. He's going to put the shits up you. If you're going in on remand for a day or 2, you're getting the shits put up you, and usually afterwards you'll be told to fuck off, and you'll have learned your lesson, and everyone will be happy. So when he said this, I suppose that was the overriding sort of monologue. It was like, well, look, at least you know that you're through the, you know, it's not going to be an issue. But in another part of my monologue is going, fucking 3 days in Clover Hill prison. And so I get brought out the back of Bray Courthouse and put in a holding cell, and the guards are like, look, you look normal, so we'll just give you the heads up, you're going to prison now, yeah? But it's not that bad, you'll be alright, we reckon. If you're really worried about it, you can go on protective, whatever. And I was like, okay, yeah, I was just processing it, and I wasn't shitting it, and I wasn't that upset about the situation, I was just processing it. And like I said, the overriding narrative or monologue was like, once you get through this, you're done with this fucking 2-year pain in your arse, right? And so off I go. I get put in a van with this other fiend from Bray. He's got his hands down his pants, who looks like tougher than me, looks like he's probably been in the system a bit more than me. And I'm chatting away to him. But yeah, off I go in the prison van out to Clover Hill prison. And I got put in a holding cell with me, the guy who had come with me from Bray. I can't remember his name, actually, and I've seen him around a couple of times. But anyway, a guy who's a dub who, by the looks of it, had problematic drug issues, and that was probably the catalyst for him being where he was in this holding cell with me. And the other guy was a Polish fiend, like a Jews head, called Dominic. And I never forget this stuff. This next sort of few minutes, the next 12 hours of my life, I will never forget. So we're all in this holding cell. You're allowed to smoke cigarettes like it's going out of fashion. Even the prison guards smoke cigarettes. I got put in this holding cell. I'm talking to your man Dominic, right? And he's like, why are you here? I was like, oh, explain, I got caught with a load of weed and I'm trying to, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I reckon this is just a little put me up to shit. So he's like, you'll be fine. You all, oh, because yeah, sorry, when I'm in the back of Bray Courthouse in that cell, my solicitor comes along and he says, look, I've managed to get the judge to agree to bring you back tomorrow. So you're going on remand for 1 night, right? So I'm back in this holding cell with Dave, the guy whose name I can't remember from Bray, and Dominic. And I was saying, your man Dominic's asking me, what do you do here? And I told him, oh yeah, the weed, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, And I said, why are you in prison? Or what are you doing here? And he's proceeded to tell me that what is it? I fight. Always I fight. That's why he's in prison. I fight. And he then told me that he was going back to Poland. He was now going to be put on a plane and extradited to Poland or kicked out of Ireland, whatever it was, and go to jail in Poland for a year. And I was like, whoa, what's that like? What's a Polish prison for a year going to be like? And he was just like, I'll never forget it, 'cause it's just like so nonchalant. Just like, for me, okay. For you, big problem. And I was like, yeah, I could imagine. So, me and Dominic and Dave and my other fiend from Bray get taken from the holding cell. I got a tracksuit and a pair of shoes, a card with my prison number and everything on it. Like, it was mad, right? And then I get brought up through the prison. And it's after 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, so everyone's in their cells. And there's no general population just wandering the landings, as it were. But I'm getting brought in through the landings and all the gates and the doors, and it's real. It's a real fucking prison. It's like In the Name of the Father for me. I'm like looking around wide-eyed and sort of, you know, the pop culture references and movie references are just popping off in my head every second. And I got put in a cell with Dominic and Dave. And it's grand. We sat there and watched television and ate Rice Krispies. They had like little boxes of Rice Krispies, and we just sat there and ate it. Now, obviously, Dominic was the daddy, 100%. He decided what we were watching on the TV. He got his pick of the variety boxes. He probably got the Cocoa Pops. Let's just say that much, right? But about 7 o'clock the next morning, the cell door opens up. I slept, whatever, it was fine. The cell door opens up and it's like, here, you're going back to Bray. You know, and I'm going back to court to, as far as I know, be told, right, don't ever let me see you here again, you little shit. So I got taken to the prison, and now it's starting to wake up, and there's mean, dangerous looking fuckers sort of getting their shit together, brushing their teeth, going down to wash themselves, do their shits, whatever it is. And I get put in, part of me sort of going, at this stage, even when I'm still looking around the landings and listening to the sounds and smelling the smells of prison life, I'm like going, Jesus, I don't know if I've learned a lesson here. This has been hella interesting, you know? I'm sort of looking around. And then I got put in a cell with 20 other fiends, all going to various and different courthouses to get sentenced or whatever it is. And very quickly, the shine came off the situation. As soon as I got put in this cell, I was like, oh my God, thank fuck I'm getting out of here today. There was a lad walking around, stocky cunt, with a shaved head, just walking around like that. And he had, I'm not joking you, a scorpion tattooed on his face here, right? He had a scorpion tattooed right here on his face. And he's just walking around, and I get in, the first thing he's like, where are you from? I was like, oh, I'm from Bray. Hey, pleased to meet you. And he's like, do you know Jimmy John or whatever it was? And I was just like, no, I promise you, I don't know anyone. I have no no, I'm sorry, I don't know anyone. And then, before we know it, oh yeah, so there's that guy, straight away, in my face, scorpion on his neck. Where are you from? Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do anything. Right, and then he just keeps pacing around. And actually, because he was on a methadone program or something, because he got brought out to take his meds. That's what the officer said, and then got brought back in, and everything was cushy. He was grand, he was sitting there and he was chilling. But there was a guy, right? There's multiple fiends there, but one thing I'll never forget is there was a guy sitting on a chair right there, and his name was, in fact, I know his name, but I'm not going to tell you his name. Let's say, for instance, his name was Johnny, right? And everyone in that cell knew Johnny. I swear to God, no matter who walked in, how you doing, Johnny? And they come over and they shake his hand. No. This guy was in his 40s, immaculate. He had a big scar down the side of his face here. He was wearing a 3-piece suit, immaculate. His hair was immaculate, his nails, everything, his suit. He was the fucking Don of Dons, obviously. I'll never forget this shit, as long as I live. He had a big file, like obviously his file from the DPP or whatever it was, there beside him. He was sitting on his own cushion. And you might be going, well, but it was just so fucking good, fellas. Here's this guy with his file. He's sitting on his own cushion. Like, no one's saying boo to him. He's in a 3-piece suit. Everyone comes in and he's just like, how'd that thing work out for you? And did she bring the baby to the courthouse? And what did the judge say? right? You'll be all right, you hear me? Look, you're going to do 6, but you'll be fine. All of this sort of stuff. Lads, young lads coming in suits and all going, all right, Johnny. I'd be like, you'll be grand. You might have to do a stretch, but you'll be fine now, you hear me? And don't worry about it. And you're like, fucking hell, man. This is just, I'm so far removed from this in my privilege, I suppose, that I didn't grow up in a circumstance. I didn't grow up in a place where this was sort of a part of life. That's one thing that became really apparent in just those few minutes. This was a part of life for these dudes. And the other thing that really struck me about Johnny in, you know, the Dawn of Dawns was he was reading Shantaram. Now, if anyone doesn't know, Shantaram's a book written by an Australian guy, and it's weird because it's sort of presented to you as fact or a true story, but it's not. I think the catalyst for the story is true. The guy was a drug addict who escaped from an Australian prison and went to India. I think that's true. And then the story gets very fantastical and sensationalised, and he certainly comes out smelling the roses the whole time and like a fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger hero. So I'm pretty sure, because they do concede that there is a lot of fiction in this book. The catalyst is real, the body is fiction or whatever. And so, and if you see the guy, he doesn't look like the tough, streetwise fiend he makes himself out to be in the book. He's like he writ himself into the starring role of his own movie almost. But it is a great book. It's a great book. It's really, it's fucking great book, right? And so there's your man, reading Shantaram. I've read it a couple of times, and he's got a load of tobacco and cigarette papers there. I've a load of tobacco, but I've no cigarette papers. So I say, sorry, bud, could I maybe potentially take some cigarette papers off you? The one thing I didn't do when I went in there was put my hands in the top of me jocks and start talking shit. I just went around like trying to be eloquent and like, hey guys, sorry to disturb, but could I, because I thought that was going to suit me best. I thought that was who I really was. These guys would sniff out bullshit in a second. Like the guy who came in with me from Bray, I think he was getting sniffed out by Dominic, say, for instance. And he had another few days minimum to do there. So I think if you're going in with these pretenses or this fake bullshit, they're going to have you for breakfast. So that's not how I was rolling. And I went in and I was just like, hey, how's it going? Can I get some? He's like, yeah, walk away there, bud, right? I said, that's a great book, isn't it? I couldn't help myself. I just thought it was so mental that this immaculate, like, Dawn of Dawns was sitting here on his fucking pillow, ready to go to court with his, you know, file beside him, reading Shantaram, a book about blah, blah, blah. So he's like, and he said to me, he's like, yeah. He said, but it's bullshit, isn't it? I think he's sort of making himself seem like he's this when he's not. I was like, that's exactly it. That's his fantasy. That's who he wishes he was. And for a minute there, I had this great little 60-second conversation about the book with this guy. It was fucking mental, right? But to wrap it up, a guy comes in, I can't remember, I do remember his name, but we're going to call him Leon, right? And he's big and he just moves like that. He's got that loping sort of thing going on. He's tall and he knows Johnny. How are you, Johnny? And the young lad who came in the suit and the other thing, he knows them all. He's like, all right, boys, what's the story? And he's just wearing like a crap tracksuit and he's sort of gaunt looking, but he's big. You could tell, like, he'd be a fucking handful, this guy. And everyone's like that. It's just like that the whole time. All right, pal. And he was talking. Eventually, it's just me and Leon in the cell, right? And he's like, what's the story with you, pal? What's your story and all? And I told him what I was doing. All right, you'd be all right. That's a trick they do now. You be going home tonight. And I said, yeah, that's what I reckon, you know, cool. And I didn't want to be like, yeah, it's great, isn't it? And he had told me that the system had failed him. That's what this dude said to me. He said, the system failed me, bro. He was in Trinity House when he was a baby, 13 or something. So there he gets brought over to fucking St. Pat's, armbarred over to St. Pat's on his 16th birthday. Starts smoking gear with the lads on the landing because he got to fit in. Leaves St. Pat's in his late teens, early 20s as a drug addict. Gets into armed robbery. Commits an armed robbery. Gets caught for it. Spends 7 years in jail. And this is where this guy looked like he could have been. He was sort of ageless. I definitely thought just by his swagger and everything that he was older than me. He wasn't. He was younger than me. He was 27 years of age. He had just gotten out of prison doing a 7-year stretch the year previous. And he was like, see me, pal, when I came out of here last time, I was 14 stone and muscle, fucking built like a brick shithouse, clean as a whistle, no gear, no nothing. And he said that he decided to go to Liverpool because he didn't want to fall into the same tracks and traps that he would in and around Dublin. And so he goes to Liverpool, and there's no heroin in Liverpool, is what he heard. And obviously he knows Dublin would just be far too enabling for him, was the impression that I got. And he says he goes over to Liverpool, but you know what? Serious amount of crack cocaine over in Liverpool. So he becomes a crackhead. And then to try and get away from that, he decides to come back to Dublin. He just falls back into the methadone program. He starts committing more crime. Now this time, he's doing phone snatches and counter hops and stuff like this. No armed robbery. He doesn't want to go down for 7 years again. But I just, like, when I spoke to that man, and I'm going to leave us on this one because I'm rabbiting on a bit, I just thought that, yeah, you're 100% right, Leon. The system has failed you. And you mightn't feel that way if he snatched your phone or jumped over the counter where you work and gave you a dig and stole from the till. You mightn't feel like that. And that's fair enough. I understand that. But whatever the parameters are, that means he ends up in Trinity House at the age of 13 and armbarred over to Pat's at 16, where the only thing to do is become a drug addict to fit in with the rest of the lunatics. Like, the system has failed him. Whatever the parameters are for that, it's failed him. Wherever he came from that didn't have... And again, we talked about this with Paul Ring last week. It's that proximity to poverty. You know, that's what that man's life is mediated by. A lack of amenities, a lack of structure and routine, parental X, Y, and Z. That's what happened to that dude, and he fell between the cracks, and at 27 years of age had spent half his life in prison. That, it was mental for me, and I definitely did learn a lesson, and I definitely walked out of that holding cell the next morning, on that morning, thinking, I'm never coming back here, not for diamonds. And so, again, there are people who probably deserve to be in prison, or there are people in need of rehabilitation, like hardcore violent offenders and stuff like that. But there's also people who, through a series of events or circumstances, or Ringo says a great thing, that the inherent potential is there for every baby born, say, in Hollis Street, and one has been born since this podcast, in the time frame of this podcast, that all of those babies have the inherent ability or potential to be superstars, but that parts of that ability or potential start to get sacrificed as they grow up. And definitely the more extreme your circumstances are, the more you're going to sacrifice. The closer your proximity to poverty, basically, the more you will have to sacrifice your potential, your inherent potential. And he made it. Yeah, and that's that, really, I suppose. I was going to end it on that. I hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's loving themselves. I'm trying to love myself. Please comment in any capacity you see fit in the comment section below. Even if you think I'm a dick and you want to say, listen, Ruben, you're a dick. Great. I'll talk about it, though. I'll call you up on the next podcast. And likewise, if you want to tell me I'm deadly, you go right ahead and do that. And apart from that, peace be the journey, homies.
Another photograph and document a life that's right. And ways consist of simple things, the days of black and white. And fate